My name's John. I'm a game design student at Full Sail University, and this is my presentation about biodiversity. As an ex-environmental science student, this is a topic that's pretty close to my heart. It's something that I know a little bit about, and I'm hoping I can teach you something today. So, some of the topics that I wanted to cover in this presentation today are what exactly biodiversity is, why it's important, some of the threats to biodiversity that are out there in the world, how one could measure biodiversity, and ways that you or anyone can improve it. First off, what is it? Well, biology is the study of living things like plants and animals. Diversity is just another word for variety, difference, or uniqueness. And so, a combination of those two words, biodiversity, is a measure of the variety of living things existing within a specific area. So, why is it important? Well, higher biodiversity means that an ecosystem is stronger. In this crude example, say there's a squirrel with three different types of trees to choose from, and one of those trees no longer exists in the ecosystem. The squirrel can still survive on the other two trees. Now, on the flip side of that, if an area has less biodiversity, it's more fragile. If that squirrel, say, only had the one type of tree to choose from, then if that tree no longer existed, the squirrel might not exist in that region either because it doesn't have the food source that it needs to survive. Say one of those regions with less biodiversity is exposed to environmental factors like a wildfire, per se, you could experience habitat loss. Or in the case of our squirrel, the species might go extinct. Or in very extreme cases, you might have full ecosystem collapse. So, what is it that threatens biodiversity in a region? Well, some of the main indirect drivers of these threats are things like economics, demographics, politics, culture and religion, and technology. But basically, what they all boil down to is a human demand for food and energy. So, these indirect drivers lead to direct causes such as climate change, habitat change, pollution, overexploitation, invasive species, and diseases. And in the next few slides, we'll go over some of those in more detail. The first one I'd like to discuss is disease, and one in particular is white nose syndrome, which is found in bats across North America and was brought here from a foreign country by backpackers, spelunkers, who went to a cave and transmitted this to bats. Not only fungus, but also invasive plant and animal species can be introduced to a region with similar effects. Japanese knotweed is one in particular that grows very quickly and stifles the growth of several other native plant species that animals and insects need for food. Probably the most severe is overexploitation. Things like overfishing, unregulated hunting, they can have serious effects. Especially in the past, there are examples of humans hunting animals to near extinction, such as beavers and bison. Another big one is pollution. Waste from humans kills plants and animals directly, and it can disrupt ecosystems indirectly through eutrophication and algae blooms, which stifle growth similarly to invasive species. Habitat change can take many forms. There's degradation, such as the melting ice caps and desertification. There's fragmentation from infrastructure like roads and buildings, like in New York City. And there is loss, which can occur from fires, forestry, mining, and many other things. The one you probably know the most about is climate change. Rising global temperatures are the root cause of several recent extinctions, and some species are directly affected, like coral or fish, and others suffer from habitat loss, like the poor polar bears and koalas from our last slide. So, how can we tell how diverse a region is? Well, the most straightforward method is measuring species richness, and that's just the total number of different species within a region. You can also measure the distribution or evenness of those species, because that's also important. Something else to look at is ecosystem diversity, and that is a total number of different ecosystems within one region, as well as the number of unique ecosystems that are found nowhere else in the world. This example here shows different regions and the different types of ecosystems that exist within those regions. Probably one of the more difficult to measure, but equally important, is genetic diversity, and that's the total variety of genes within a single species that share an ecosystem. Something you might remember from high school science is the Galapagos finches, which are all one species but have different beak shapes. And the final factor of measuring biodiversity is counting the number of endemic species, and that is simply the number of species within a region that occur nowhere else in the world. You can see I brought back the koala and the polar bear because both of those are unique to their regions, and that's why those regions are important to protect. So you might be thinking, what can I do about all of this? But really, all it takes is tackling those direct causes by addressing the indirect drivers. So you can do things like contact elected officials, recycle, conserve more energy, do research before you purchase any exotic pets. But there is one thing that's more important than any of that. Education. Now that you know a thing or two, it's your responsibility to share this video or just some of the information in it with other people so that we can spread the word around the world and make it a better place for all of us to live. Thanks for watching my presentation. I hope you learned a thing or two. Bye.